So Act 2 is numbers, and we have two people talking, Shrey Gupta and Ashi Agrawal. Shrey's talk is called Binary Can Be Beautiful, Expressing Yourself with Computer Science. Shrey loves spicy food, and again, these are written by these folks, not me. Shrey loves spicy food, enjoys cup stacking, and learned to play games on a computer before he could speak, which tells you two things. Computers have always been a huge part of his life, and he was a late bloomer in the speech department. He loves exploring what happens at the intersection of CS and social sciences and the humanities, and that will be the subject of his talk this evening. Shrey.
Sorry. Alright, good evening everyone. So I'm Shrey, and thank you for the introduction, Jeff. So I just want you guys to go ahead and just take a moment and think about what do you think of when I say the word computer science, you know? Especially at a school like Stanford, you're probably thinking of some preppy guy or, you know, coding away late at night with some coffee, probably a startup shirt, and, you know, trying to make like the next big Snapchat or like the Uber of this or the Facebook of that, right? You're thinking of someone who's trying to do something like really practical. Or maybe on the other hand, you're thinking of something that's really mathematical. You're thinking of a lot of algorithms and a lot of complex kind of things coming together. Either way, you know, it's something that you wouldn't think of it as artistic, right? You know, it's in the name, computer science. It's not computer art, it's computer science, right? So, you know, it just seems like something that's really practical and maybe cut and dry. But if you really take a moment to think about it, you know, CS might be a little more than just the science that its name lets on. Computer science has very much become the 21st century paintbrush, and computers have very much become the 21st century canvas for that paintbrush. So some examples of that, you know, digital art and digital music, computationally generated art and music. You know, we live in an age where, like, if you go on Spotify Top 50 right now, at least 10 to 20 of them will have had some kind of computer-generated music, or computers will have had a significant portion in the kind of creative process of making that music. And same thing goes with art. People are making fractal-based art. They're making a lot of art that's just reliant on computers. There's things like graphic design, web design. So essentially what we're seeing is that computer science has become a way to kind of express yourself in the 21st century. It's something that has kind of transcended just the scientific portion of it. But maybe it's a little more than just, you know, oh, I made something using computer science. Like, yeah, I used Paint Shop Pro instead of, like, you know, an actual painted canvas. But what if we kind of consider some of the kind of creative aspect of it? And one place where you can see this very vividly is video game design. Because in video game design, when you're designing that video game, you're not just creating like a fantastical world for other people to play in. You're imparting part of your soul in there. You're putting your creative instinct and your creative guts into that piece of work. And one example of this is Super Smash Bros. So some of you have heard of it, some of you haven't. If you've played it, that's awesome. It's a great game. But if you haven't heard of it, it's basically that fighting game where a bunch of people are like playing with random Nintendo characters and Pokemon characters. You've probably seen someone playing that in some dorm on a nice big flat screen TV. But the idea behind this is that, you know, while on the face it just looks like a kind of mundane fighting game, like, you know, a bunch of people are just kind of tossing energy lasers around and kind of things like that. But there's actually kind of an interesting story behind it. You know, it's a franchise, there's like multiple games of that series now. And in the first game there's this kind of final boss called Master Hand. And the idea behind this is that Master Hand would represent the creative instinct of the creator of the game creator himself, Masahiro Sakurai. And the idea is that this was essentially the final test. If you were able as the player to beat the creator of the game, you have truly mastered the game and you've won. But in the second game, things got a little darker. What was happening in real life is that, you know, after the blowout success of the first game, he was being told to make more and more of the same game. And he's had this experience before. He created other video game characters like Kirby. And, you know, he had the issue where that once he created something successful, people kept telling him to serialize it, make it more. Make it so it's more profitable. And he felt like he was killing what he was creating just by adding more and more dimensions to it that he really didn't want to add in the first place. And the second game, he added this element called Crazy Hand. And Crazy Hand is the antithesis to Master Hand. He is actively destructive. He destroys whatever Master Hand does. And you see this in the final battles of the game. So essentially that second game kind of manifested his frustration at the video game industry and how he's being forced to take what he's created with one hand and destroy it with the other hand. And then in future games, he's introduced more elements like Taboo, which basically says, you know, Master Hand is just a puppet of the video game industry. And he's being forced to kind of make video games just because the industry wants it. Now, this is kind of a bit of a dramatic example of how computer science can be used to express yourself. But maybe we can carry this analogy a little further. Maybe CS isn't just a tool for making art. Maybe CS is actually a discipline of art itself. Now, you guys might think this is a bit far-fetched, right? I did too when I was writing this, but then I thought about it for a moment. You know, if you really think about what artists do, right, like fine artists, they take their creative impulse and they channel it using some kind of language, a language of strokes or a language of chisels, something like that. And every single stroke that they put on has a meaning, it has a purpose. Where they put it on the painting, why they put it there, when they put it there, what type of stroke it is, how did they paint that stroke. All of that has inherent meaning. And when you put all those strokes together, it has even more meaning. The sum of the parts is greater, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts in that case. And ultimately, it's all in a goal to kind of transcribe what you are feeling in something that you find that is elegant and something that's aesthetically pleasing. And you put that on some kind of medium for other people to see. And that's ultimately what art has come down to. But, if you think about what a programmer does, it's not terribly different, is it? If you really think about what a programmer does, they think of a problem, they try solving their unique way. They have their own way of, their own mindset of really approaching that. And if you look at two people's code for the same exact problem, I'm sure you've seen this in your CS classes, two people will never have the same code, same exact code to the character. Some people might put more spaces somewhere, some people might think it's more aesthetically pleasing to use tabs. There's entire debates about this. The entire idea is that you have your own signature, you have your own kind of part that says, hey, this code was this person's and it wasn't someone else's. And what you're doing is you're kind of channeling that creative instinct of, hey, I have this problem, and you're trying to solve it in an elegant way, using those strokes of computer science, the code, and the vocabulary you're given, for, if, while, etc. You put all those things that have very little meaning individually, but you put them together, and you form something that's more elegant than the sum of its parts. And ultimately, that's what it really comes down to. You're using this 21st century paintbrush on a 21st century canvas called the computer to actually really impart what you believe and what you see is elegant, what you see is interesting. And maybe, just maybe, computer science is not just a science that its name lends it to be. Maybe it's an art. Thank you.